So welcome to our college financial planning overview. I am Janet Riis. I'm the Director of Financial Aid at Carroll College in Helena, Montana. I have over 30 years in the financial aid industry, and I'm a certified financial aid administrator. And I'm very excited to have you join me tonight so I can share some of the wisdom that I have with this whole process and all of the changes that are about to happen. 'Tis the season typically you see our campus during fall semester. Usually in October, we're full on with the FAFSA season. But this year only, that is going to be delayed. So normally it is October 1st. This year only, it will be sometime in late December. We do not have a date yet. We're assuming late December. By law, it needs to be done by January 1st. And so we will be communicating, all the colleges will be communicating to let you know when that is open. You do file a federal FAFSA form each year. So remember, normally it is October 1st. So, and if someone is not muted, if you could please mute. Maybe it's on a phone. Thank you. So the reason it's being delayed is because there are major changes in the federal FAFSA form that we'll talk about today. This is my contact information in case you have any general follow-up questions after today or throughout the whole process. You can also contact any financial aid office near you. Our professional colleagues can assist you. This is our job. We help anybody in the community. So feel free, just if you have any questions, you're just not even sure how to ask the question, feel free to reach out and I can help you through that. So our overview today will include some highlights of the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA form. The form changes, what to expect when completing the online process, after you complete the process, and then mistakes to hopefully avoid, some tips to use, and some financial aid, what type of financial aid is available, and also a timeline for the whole financial aid process, which actually begins now and then goes through August when you enroll. An overview of the FAFSA process is summarized here, but it can feel like a daunting, overwhelming process. So today I hope to give you a glimpse of the process. You'll begin in December. The FAFSA is required for all federal aid, which includes gift aid, which is free money, like grants and scholarships, along with work study, which must be earned, and the student and parent loans, which must be repaid. Be sure you are on the studentaid.gov site and not a site that requires you to pay for filing the FAFSA, because the FAFSA is free to apply for. So just make sure of that. And we encourage you to file beginning in December as soon as it is available. So just be watching your emails and social media. Department of Education will be pushing many things out on social media. And many colleges do have a priority deadline to file the FAFSA by, so check with each college you're interested in and see what those dates might be. And also, they might be different just this one year because of the late FAFSA. So find out what their normal priority deadlines are as well for future years. Many schools have first come, first serve aid, so it's always best to complete it as soon as possible after it does become available. Before you file the first FAFSA, you and your parent, if you're a dependent student, must create your studentaid.gov account, which is also being transitioned from what was formerly called the FSA ID, or Federal Student Aid ID. It's being transitioned from that to a student aid account. They're just simplifying it, I guess. You will likely still hear, though, the account being called an FSA ID, especially this fall, because we're all trying to get transitioned through that process. The studentaid.gov account information, or AKA FSA ID, serves as your signature for the FAFSA and all federal sites from the first time you complete the FAFSA form through graduate school and repayment of student loans. So don't lose it and keep it in a very safe place. The process for obtaining the account can take up to 3 days. So this is what we encourage you to do now. You can go on studentaid.gov and create the student and the parent, which are two different student aid accounts. And then it will be ready for you when the FAFSA becomes available. So you'll have that part done, and then you'll just need to go in and do the FAFSA. The federal form does use 2-year prior tax data. So we understand sometimes your income levels have changed or other special circumstances arise, and your situation is different than what the FAFSA will require you to put on it. Colleges can choose to do a professional judgment or special circumstance review if you choose to submit any appeal documentation to the colleges. This is done on a school-by-school basis, and the results can be different at each school. As an example, Carroll has an online form which explains the most common circumstances colleges review. The main two or most common two would be a loss of income or maybe a recent divorce in the family. One tool that could prove useful for families, especially this year because of the delay of the FAFSA, is the net price calculator. All colleges are required to have a net price calculator. If you go on to a college website, you can search net price calculator and you will find it. Some calculators will give you not only the federal aid estimate, but also the college gift aid estimate. So it's a good way to get an early estimate of what aid you could expect from the colleges. The federal student aid site also has an estimator, which will estimate federal aid only. And to do that, you can go to the studentaid.gov site and search estimator. Federal student aid is seeing major changes. We have not seen these for over 40 years, changes like this. The FAFSA simplification changes are making it easier for families to complete the application and has changed the whole formula for aid, which should enable more families to become eligible for more need-based aid. Questions on the application were reduced significantly, and it's now also estimated that up to 20% more students may qualify for federal grants. So all of these changes are very positive. There's just change for some. Okay, so some of the major changes to the upcoming 2024-25 FAFSA form include the following. As I mentioned, the studentaid.gov account is replacing that federal student aid ID. So it's one and the same, it's just a name change. So it's your studentaid.gov account, which actually may make more sense because you access all federal sites really from your studentaid.gov account. And then there is also an introduction of contributors to the FAFSA form. And we'll talk about this a little more in detail. As a student, you're completing the FAFSA form, and then you're inviting contributors to fill out their sections. So for instance, a parent is a contributor. There's also a new FAFSA onboarding experience for both the initial entry and/or corrections. And this really helps to give the student or parent an overview of what's going to be expected of them. So it's a good new feature. Also, major change is there is an integration to allow users federal tax information to be retrieved and transferred directly into the FAFSA. And it is an IRS direct data exchange. So it is the IRS data that the federal FAFSA form is using. Then the replacement of what we have had for years and years and years and years is an expected family contribution. The EFC was the result of the FAFSA form. So it's what colleges use to determine your financial aid. The name of that has changed, and that will now be the Student Aid Index, or the SAI. Okay, it's used in the same fashion. It is a new formula behind it, and it's a new name. And then there are required consent acknowledgments from the users. And the reason for that is because you are obtaining IRS data and you want to be eligible for federal aid and receive a student aid index. So there's a consent form you'll agree to when you're completing this. Students or parents can begin the FAFSA form. They will begin it, complete it, and then submit it. But we'll go through a short little overview to show you how this works. And then dependent students must invite their parent to contribute, and discuss that already. And then after the FAFSA form is processed, students can correct or update their application, but contributors, such as parents, are able to correct and update only their sections of the student application. So that is a change as well for some of the parents who might have been through this process before. So to give you an idea of what to expect when you submit the form, we have a few screenshots as a preview. This is the main FAFSA form landing page. On this page, students are directed to start a new form or edit an existing one. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to have the student begin a new application, and they will be a dependent student. So if the student starts a new form from the landing page, they are not logged in. They'll need to log in using that new student aid account, formerly known as an FSA ID. So as you can see, they're still calling it an FSA ID right here. So that's where they're kind of interchangeable names, but it's transitioning from FSA ID to a student aid account. So the student theoretically will have created that account with their user and password prior to coming to do the FAFSA, because remember, it takes 3 days to completely finish that process just to get the account. So here they would go in and just log in using that information. After logging in, the student can select the applicable role to fill out the form. So this is the student in this example completing the form. So they're going to indicate student. And then when the student starts the form for the first time, they are taken through that onboarding process. The first onboarding page provides an overview of the form with an accompanying video. And then this page, after the onboarding, the page informs the student about consent and their federal tax information. By providing consent, the student's federal tax information is transferred directly into the FAFSA from the IRS to help complete the student financial sections. The student needs to select approve to provide consent, and then is taken to the next page. The next page are the student's personal circumstances. This is the section that will determine the dependency status and if a parent must supply income information for the student. So for those of you who have maybe done this before, this is personal circumstances is now what used to be called the dependency section. The example we're reviewing assumes this is a dependent student based on prior questions. So the next section is considered the parent wizard to help the student determine which parent or parents they should invite to help them complete the form. In this example, the student indicates their parents are married to each other. There's a change to the FAFSA rules, one of the many changes, regarding divorced parents. Previously, the instructions told a student to use the parent whom they lived with in the past 12 months and contributed more than 50% of their living expenses. Beginning with the 24-25 academic year, it no longer matters who the student lived with, but rather which parent supports them more than 50%. If your parents contribute equally, 50-50, then the determining factor is now which parent has a greater income. Please note also that child support paid by a parent is considered support counting toward 50% of that parent paying it. So the parent that pays the child support claims that amount toward their percentage when you're trying to determine which parent contributes more than 50%. So we have some frequently asked questions. I'm asked every FAFSA night, so and these are a few of them. My parents are married, but filed 22 taxes separately, because remember the federal FAFSA form you will be filing is going to ask for 22 federal taxes information. So they were married, but they filed taxes separately. Who do I need to invite to complete my FAFSA? You must invite both parents to contribute tax data, and both parents then would need their own studentaid.gov account or FSA ID because it serves as their signature, and their taxes will be brought in separately. Second bullet, my parents are divorced and not remarried. Which parent do I invite to complete my FAFSA? And here you follow the new rules of which parent provides more than 50% support. And it's not necessarily who you live with. Third bullet, my parents are divorced and one parent is remarried. Which parents do I invite to complete the FAFSA? Again, you follow the new rule of which household supports you more than 50%. So if the parent with a new spouse is supporting you more than 50%, then you must invite the remarried parent and the new spouse to complete the form. Furthermore, if said parent was recently remarried and did not file the 22 tax form with the new spouse, then the student would need to invite both the parent and the new spouse to contribute to the form. And I know that gets a little tricky. So put your questions in chat if you have questions on some of these. And then the fourth one, why do I have to put the parent with the largest income on the FAFSA if they support me 50-50? I didn't have to last year. And the answer for that is federal rules changed, and that's what they've changed to. Okay. So the dependent student invites their parent then, once they've completed their sections, to complete the parent section of the FAFSA form. But remember, if the parents were married but filed separate, you'll need to invite two different parents. And to do this, just remember when the student is going out and doing some of this process, they do need the parents' social security numbers and different email addresses for each person they're inviting. They can't use the same email address. So just know that they need to have that information. So. Okay, and then we have the review page. The student, when they are done with their own section, then the student gets to review all of their responses. And it is much easier to review it here than to submit it and have to go back and make corrections. So I do encourage you to review all the information that you've submitted. Okay, and then upon signing the student section, the student is presented a complete page. This page displays information for the student about what the next steps are, including tracking the FAFSA form, because remember, it's not submitted yet because they have to wait for their parents to complete their section, and then they can submit it. So remember to track that. So you might think you've done it, but maybe your parent hasn't fully submitted it after they put their information in. So you just kind of more of a tracking thing there. So then the parent receives an email and it says, you've been invited to do a FAFSA. So this is what they will see when they log in. And remember, hopefully the parent or parents have their own studentaid.gov account or FSA ID created before they go in to do the FAFSA, because remember, it takes 3 days again to process that account. So after logging in, they're taken to my activity page, and the parent sees the invitation, and they can hit get started to fill out their sections. And then this page informs the parent about the consent about the federal tax information. So just like the student had to consent to bring their IRS tax information in, the parent needs to as well. The consent is not only for just bringing IRS tax information over, it is also to say, I consent to receive federal aid. So you do need to consent, both the student and the parent, to that to be eligible. And then this page asks the parent if their family size has changed. So initial family size is derived from the dependents that are listed on the IRS tax form that the parents completed. So if the current family size is different than the 22 federal taxes that your parents completed, they can update that here. So the federal tax data, however, will not display here, which is intended to keep your tax data secure and safe. So it would be helpful if you have your taxes in front of you to know what your how many dependents were listed on the 22 tax form, to know whether or not you might need to make a correction to that here. Okay, and then there is a question for the student's parent, the number in college in the household. So how many people in the parent's family will be in college for the next academic year? This question is still asked, but it is no longer used in the new student aid index formula calculation for the 24-25 academic year. So if you're a parent who has had multiple students in college before, that was factored in, and that is no longer going to be factored in. And that is a federal change that was done. And then on this page, the parent acknowledges the terms and conditions. They sign their section because they're logged in with their student aid account. That's their signature. So once all are complete, the parent can sign and also submit the FAFSA on the student's behalf. Upon submitting the FAFSA, the parent is presented an abbreviated confirmation page. This page displays information about tracking the next steps, just like the students did. The student then will receive an email with the full detailed confirmation. With the student and parent sections completed and signed, the FAFSA form is now considered complete and submitted for processing. So what the student receives on their confirmation page, it is now called a FAFSA submission summary. And this is what the student receives. And any subsequent corrections they make to a FAFSA, they will also get a new submission summary. It is broken down into 4 tabs. There's an eligibility overview. There is a FAFSA form, answers, school information, and the next steps. At the top, the student will see information about when their form was received and processed, and they also have the option to print this submission page. So the overview eligibility tab, on that, the students can see information about how much of a Pell Grant they may be eligible for, or direct loans, or work study. But the one thing to remember here is the college is who sends the actual aid offer. But this gives you an overview of the estimate of what you can expect. And then each college does their own aid offer out to the student. Also on the overview page is that student aid index number. The SAI is a number used by the schools, the colleges, to determine federal student aid eligibility and to build that financial aid offer. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this new student aid index, because it is a little different than the old EFC, or expected family contribution number. So the student aid index, or SAI, that was previously EFC, is the number the FAFSA calculates to measure your need. The lower the student aid index, the higher the financial need for gift aid. So as an example, the highest, most needy student would see a negative $1,500. So a negative number is actually the highest need. Okay, so that's new. Used to be that an expected family contribution, the lowest was a 0. Okay, and that was the highest need. But now it can go negative. Schools, it's not an actual number. It's of what you'll pay the colleges. It's a tool that the schools use to calculate your financial need and to determine what you're eligible for at that school. Okay, so we've gone through the FAFSA process. We know it uses 2022 federal taxes, and some things might have changed since that time. So colleges are given an opportunity to exercise professional judgment or to review special circumstances. And this slide just shows you some examples of some of the special circumstances that can arise. Most colleges have some type of form that you can use. If you have one of these circumstances, though, like a loss of a job or a layoff situation or a recent divorce of parents, I encourage you to reach out to the schools that you're looking at and talk through that process with them first, and then they can direct you to the right process for their college. And again, each college does it a little differently and may have different requirements. So you'll want to reach out to each college that you're looking at. Okay, so we've talked about the FAFSA, we've talked about the results, and now comes the college part, right? So each college has their own cost of attendance. Couple main things to keep in mind when the glossary of terms, I guess, for the cost of college. So direct costs are those things you would see normally on a billing statement from a business office. So once you're registered for classes, you are going to be charged tuition and maybe fees or course fees for those classes that you're actually registered for. That would be on a bill. And then your housing, if you're on campus living, or a food plan. So those are things that are charged to you on a bill. And then there's indirect costs, which we include in the total cost of attendance as an example for you as what to expect the full year might cost. And those indirect costs would be your books, course materials, supplies, equipment you might need, transportation allowances to get to and from college, miscellaneous personal expenses, any loan fees you might have with any loans you borrow, and also any other documented educational expenses. That with the direct costs, so direct and indirect cost estimates, total a cost of attendance for the year. Okay, so when you're working with different colleges, they might use the direct cost in talking about what you'll owe, but realize there are indirect costs as well that you'll need to budget for, that you'll pay just out of pocket. So, or maybe you're borrowing loans to help with that. But there's two different categories, but they total up to the total cost of attendance. So this chart just kind of shows you how financial need can vary based on the college cost. So in this example, the cost of attendance can be variable. So you have an example where college A costs more than B, and maybe college C is a 2-year community college. That student aid index stays constant no matter where you're attending, right? Because that's just the results from the federal FAFSA form. So the result, when you subtract the student aid index from the cost of attendance, equals the financial need for that student at that college. So as you can see, the higher cost college will have a higher financial need. So you might be eligible for some need-based aid at college A, and you might not get that exact same need-based aid at college C. Pell Grant might be the same, but then other gift aid might be different, or maybe subsidized loans might be different, or work study. So this is where we remind you that colleges determine what you're eligible for based on the FAFSA results, but also based on what your cost is at their college and what your need is at their college. Hey, types of aid. The types of aid you may be eligible for include grants and scholarships, which are free money, student or parent loans, which require repayment after graduation, work study, which requires a student to work approximately 10 hours a week while enrolled to earn a paycheck monthly. And then the grants are generally available to high need students. Work is available for most need-based students. And regardless of financial need, you will receive notice of Stafford loan eligibility, which may be partial subsidized, which means no interest accrues while you're enrolled, or maybe all unsubsidized, which means interest does accrue while you're enrolled. And also parents may borrow loans up to the full cost of attendance minus the other aid offered, which helps to fill the gap of what you may need to pay the bill if you do not have a college savings plan. Much more information regarding aid options will be available to you when you receive your actual aid offers from the colleges. A one-on-one meeting with a counselor is a great way to understand the aid you are eligible for, and what you're eligible for at each college. So I would encourage you to visit the colleges and request a meeting with financial aid professional to understand the types of aid you might qualify for at each one of the colleges. And if you can't visit all, at least try to schedule a one-on-one call or a Zoom. Okay, there are several federal grants available through the federal government. The federal Pell Grant will be the most common one, and your results of the FAFSA will indicate if you are eligible or not. As we mentioned on the previous slide, students may be eligible for a subsidized loan, an unsubsidized loan, or a combination of both, depending on that financial need. And then work study is an option to work and earn a paycheck monthly. Generally, students work about, as I mentioned, about 10 hours a week or so, so it really does fit into any student's schedule. And it allows the student to have a little extra spending money, so to help with that transportation allowance or personal expense money that you might need. And then Parent Plus loans are also available through the federal government to help fill that gap not covered by any other aid or savings. Okay, and then we have some non-financial aid that can be used to offset or reduce the remaining balance due after all other federal and college aid is applied to the bill. So some examples of just resources you could think of are listed here. Many colleges have a payment plan which allows you to pay the yearly balance due after all aid over a period of 9 to 12 months. And this can lower than the monthly payment that you need to make if you're doing it over a full 12-month period of time rather than just 4 or 5 months. It helps to spread out those payments. So many of these plans also are interest-free. So I would encourage you to check into your colleges when it becomes time and see what options they may have available to help you with the balance due. Okay. Some large colleges with large endowments might require additional financial aid forms. So, and that the most common one is the CSS profile. So we talked about the federal FAFSA form. That is the form you need to do for any federal aid. So even if a college requires this profile form also, you do also need to do the federal FAFSA form. So just remember that. Not all colleges require it, so just check with your colleges. Again, it's usually large private institutions or very large, some very large publics too. It really is a pretty in-depth application. The FAFSA form is now about 36 questions, but the profile will be over 200 questions. They're going to go a little more in depth about parents' marital status. They're going to include home equity, which the FAFSA does not. It's going to ask for non-custodial parent information. It does cost a fee to complete it, but there are some fee waivers. So work with the colleges that you are looking at, and if they require it, just note that this is a supplemental form. Carroll does not work with this form. Carroll College does not. So I don't know all the ins and outs of this form, but I know the basics. So if you have questions on that, though, feel free to ask. All right. And then our outside resources and scholarships. There are a lot of different resources out there. Do your homework when it comes to searching for these, and I would start this process now. So, you're going to go out, you're going to get your studentaid.gov account, right? You're going to do that early, and then start working on these outside source scholarships. We have a great resource if you want to get on Carroll's website. We have a toolkit that helps you with this whole process of applying for all sorts of scholarships. There's an Excel template where you can track which ones you've applied to, which ones are renewable, what are the due dates, when should you reapply for sophomore year. So there's really good resources on our website under general scholarships. If you go to the Carroll website and just look at the general scholarship section. And then some of these links are there as well as several other links. But most of these outside source scholarships really open up about now, and they go through next late spring, June probably. So now is the time to start looking at some of these, and then look at all the other resources that might be out there for you as well. If you're a Montana student, Reach Higher Montana it really works with a lot of our Montana folks, and they really help you find a lot of scholarships as well. And then state aid can also be available. So check out your state aid website. I know we've got some Montana and out of state folks on the call tonight. So check out your state aid website. Aid offers will start to arrive this year in late January and go through probably about April because of the delay. They'll be a little bit later. Keep your aid offers in a special folder so when you have them all received from the top colleges that you're looking at, you can sit down at the kitchen table and compare them as a family. We understand the decision may not always just come down to the major or the fit, but finances play a huge part of that overall fit and the right choice for you. And we want this to be a great decision for you and your family. When you're comparing colleges, I would encourage you to give your colleges a call, and the professionals there at the college can help navigate this comparison. Also, a lot of colleges, including Carroll, include a comparison worksheet with the aid offer package. So it helps you define, okay, what are my direct costs? What are my indirect costs? What are the grants and the free money and the scholarships that are being offered? What's the free money? And then you subtract the gift aid from the balance due, and then what's the balance due. So make sure you're comparing apples to apples, and those comparison worksheets really kind of help with that. But our professionals in the state can help as well. All right. So the financial aid timeline, hopefully you're applying for admission now. Now's the time to do that. And then file the FAFSA as soon as you can, late December. We're all making bets that it's probably right after Christmas sometime. And then apply for scholarships now. Contact your colleges. Some of them may have some scholarship applications open now, and some may wait until the FAFSA comes out because many scholarships align with FAFSA results. So check with each college, see what all their application processes look like. And then aid offers, be looking for those January through about April or May. And then review all of those with your family. Call the financial aid offices. That's what we're here for. We'll help you compare the aid offers if that's what you want to do. And then accept your aid by May 1st. Kind of that national decision day is to decide where you want to enroll. You'll pay any enrollment or housing deposit if it's required to register for classes. and then make final payment arrangements are usually June, July, maybe early August, and then start the next chapter. So we've covered a lot, and I want to go through a few things that might impact you based on the major changes that have happened with FAFSA simplification, especially if you're a family who have filed the federal form before. You might see some differences. So I kind of want to go through a few of these with you so you're aware. Just a reminder that student aid index can now be as low as negative 1,500. It replaced the EFC, or expected family contribution. And a big one for some families is that the number of family members in college is removed from the formula. It is no longer in the formula. And this was done purposely. They didn't make a mistake. They believe it levels the equity amount. You know, some families planned kids 4 or 5 years apart, and some are each year, you know, staggered every other year maybe. So this, in their opinion, is equalizing the families out. And then this one we have not touched on yet. The net worth of a farm or ranch is now included in the value when you're reporting that on the form. So previously a family-owned farm or ranch could be excluded, but now it does need to be included. So it's the net worth of a farm or ranch. So the fair market value of land, buildings, livestock, unharvested crops, machinery actively used in investment farms or agricultural or commercial activities, minus any debts held against those assets. So this is new for some of our families. And if you have questions on how to determine that net worth, the colleges can help you with that as well. I just went to a presentation about it from a loan officer at a bank, and it was very helpful. Also, the fourth bullet here, the net worth of a business, a small family-owned business, is no longer limited to those with more than 100 full-time employees. So applicants will be asked to report the net worth of any kind of businesses, regardless of what their size is. So if you have 1-2 employees, you're going to need to now report that net worth of a business. And then for dependent students, this is a change. Educational savings accounts will only be counted as a parental asset if the account is designated for the student you're filing the FAFSA for. So previously, if a parent had educational savings accounts for their other children, the value of those were also included and counted, but now you only include the portion that is going to the student that you're filing the FAFSA form for. So that's a good change. And then the definition of family size has changed to align with the number of individuals reported as dependents on the applicant's parents' tax return. So if it's a dependent student, so we talked about this briefly, but you can update, your parent can update the family size if it has changed since their 22 federal tax filing. But they will need to know what they put on the 22 taxes as number of dependents, because they won't be able to see that when they're doing their FAFSA. Okay, and this next bullet regarding users without a social security number can and will need to create an FSA ID or student aid account and access the FAFSA form. It's not available yet, so if you happen to be a parent, for example, that does not have a social security number, you will need to create an FSA ID or student aid account, but it's not available quite yet. They are working that piece out, and it will be an option available in December. Okay, and then also now, because the majority of information is coming directly from the IRS, they need a place to put child support received. So the assets now will be the place that will include the annual amount of child support received. Previously, it was included as income in the EFC formula. The recipient of the child support will be asked to report the amount received in the last complete calendar year. So this is a little different because remember, for taxes, we're looking at 22 federal tax. But this one question, if you receive child support, is going to ask you to report the amount you received in the last complete calendar year. Okay, so just I encourage you to take time and read every question on the FAFSA, and it will help you not have to make corrections. And then they did increase the number of colleges a student can list on their FAFSA, and they have increased that from 10 to 20. So hopefully maybe by December, students have that narrowed down a little bit more than 20, but you can list 20 colleges if you would like to. Then all 20 of those colleges get those results. So so how will the changes benefit you? So we have some of the changes that were, depending on how you look at it, good or negative, but how will they benefit you? So students and families will see a different measure of their ability because the whole methodology, the formula, has changed. And it is anticipated that more students are going to be eligible for federal grants. So that is a very positive thing. And then Pell Grant eligibility is actually determined in 3 different ways now. So a maximum Pell Grant. Applicants may qualify for the maximum based on family size, adjusted gross income, and poverty guidelines. Students qualifying for maximum Pell Grant will have a student aid index between a negative 1,500 and 0. So that'd be the max, just based on those qualifications. And then the second way a student can qualify for a Pell Grant would be based on, so if they don't qualify for the maximum from bullet 1, they may still qualify based on the calculated SAI if it's less than the maximum Pell Grant. The applicant's Pell Grant award for full-time enrollment will be equal to the maximum Pell Grant for the award year minus that student aid index. And then the Pell Grant could be adjusted if they're not full-time, for instance, but that's the second way a student could qualify. And then you have a minimum Pell Grant. So applicants whose SAI, that student aid index, is greater than the maximum Pell Grant award for the award year may still qualify for a Pell Grant based on the family size, the adjusted gross income, and some poverty guidelines. So there's more ways a student might qualify for gift aid. So that's a good thing. So this is us, the lovely ladies of financial aid at Carroll College. This is all our contact information here as well. Please let us know if we can help you along the journey. It's a little wonky journey this year with FAFSA, but it'll all work itself out. And then after this year, things will be back to normal. But regardless of what college you're looking at, we are more than happy to help. We are part of our state, regional, and national association for financial aid administrators, and we are here to help the community with federal financial aid